Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
What is the strangest thing that has happened to you, witnessed while being out?
My friend and I were out hiking, and on our way back we came to a crossroads where 4 trails met. In this crossroads there was a group of older women who seemingly came out of nowhere. They stopped us to ask for directions back to the cabin. We asked a few times which trail they came in on, but they either dodged the question or ignored it. We both got a really weird vibe from this group. We assumed they meant the visitor center where you check in, so my friend told them there was a trail that goes up the hill behind them. But I interjected to say that the hill was a bit steeper than it looked, so be prepared to take some breaks to rest, or alternatively follow a flatter, but longer, trail through the woods. One of the ladies responded rather aggressively, "Thank you for honesty," as if we had passed some kind of test. After giving our directions, we said goodbye and headed on our way. Not too long after, we turned around to look at the crossroads where we met them, but it was empty without any trace of them. For weeks afterwards we both had mild nightmares. Clearly, we encountered a coven in the woods.
Be me about 9 years old. Visit mom's family in the countryside. Grandpa owns a big-ass piece of land and a farm with lots of hills, and parts of it are deep in the woods. Been hiking and playing in woods with cousins since we were like 5, so we pretty much know it like the back of our hand. Deep in the forest, we see what looks like a small stone castle coming out of a hillside. Looks old as fuck, has these trees coming out of it in some parts. It's like 18 foot tall and has a tower that is a few ft taller, so maybe like 20 foot overall. Has what seems like an entrance about 3 foot tall and 2 feet wide. Looks very deep and dark. We are messing around, and after a while we think this could collapse on top of us if we mess up. We go back and tell the rest of the cousins, while Gramps is talking with my mom and dad in the kitchen. We agreed to come back to it the next day with the rest of the cousins. Next day, we head back. Get to the part of the woods where we saw it. There's the hill, but no castle. Cousins get mad and say we made it all up. Return to the rest of the family. Go Grandpa. Vaguely tell him that we saw a castle yesterday but couldn't find it now. He looks at me a bit concerned. Says, "The small one with stone walls and a tower?" I just nod. He says when he first bought the land he hiked and camped all through it so he could get to it. Says he was walking along the riverside and saw it between some trees near the outline of the property. Kept on hiking and returned to the spot after 2 days with lanterns and tools to see if he can get inside of it. It's no longer there. Says he hasn't seen it since. Tell him this time it looked like it was half inside of the hill. Looks concerned, tells me and the rest of the kids to keep it a secret, not mess with, and walk away if we ever find it again. It's been 12 years since and I've never seen it again.
Not that spooky, but this is the only time anything out of the ordinary has really happened to me while out camping near a popular climbing area. It's kind of an ad hoc campsite along the road with 50 to 100 yards between campsites. Several other groups there as well. Fall asleep in a tent. Wake up to somebody brushing against the side of my tent. They start to unzip it. No, it's not the guy I'm there with, because he wouldn't be just randomly unzipping my tent in the middle of the night without saying anything. I'm freaking out. Grab my pistol and yell, "What the fuck?" Guy stumbles back. Put on my headlamp and look out of the tent. Younger long-haired hippie type sitting on the ground a couple yards away from my tent. Gun pointed at him, ask what the fuck he was doing. He starts apologizing profusely. He was clearly drunk. Said he was lost and had the wrong tent. A little too stunned myself to argue or chastise him. Watch as he stumbles back toward the road. Go back to bed, but don't get much sleep the rest of the night. Ask everyone I come across climbing the next day if they know the guy, and nobody did. He seemed like he was telling the truth, but who the fuck gets that mixed up when the tents are that far apart, even while drunk?
I have one that has been burning at the back of my brain for 15 years. Be younger me, walking my parents' dog. Nice walk on the beach. Starts raining, so my dog and I walk up the shore to a band of woodland. Pass an old paddock, something about a shape in the hedge doesn't seem right. Shrug shoulders and walk on. 1.5 hours later, be walking back. Past the same paddock, can't stop looking at it. 100 meters away, looks like a cow or horse stuck in a ditch, with its ass protruding from the bushes. Whistles. Hedge moves like crazy, what I can only describe as a man-shaped thing cleanly pivots and walks out of the hedge. About average height, probably 5'8" or 6", covered with hair. Head of a dog, but no canine I've ever seen, like a crocodile with hair. Wide set orange eyes, not eye pins like a wolf, vivid orange eyes, huge eyes, with round pits, like a person. Slightly curly hair, fine on its chest and stomach, grey skin like a black dog, ears like an Alsatian, oddly immobile, placental cross like a dog but almost on the bow of its ribcage. It was walking with the gait of a human, but with the mechanics of a dog. It had the thighs of a man, but its lower legs were opposite to the anatomy of a dog. It walked about halfway into the paddock, maintaining strong eye contact with me. Held eye contact for what was a few seconds. Like the click of a finger, turned, ran and jumped through wild overgrowth. I was a stone statue. When my senses did kick in, I started to run, remembered my dog, considered leaving my dog, went back for my dog, scooped her up, sprinted back towards my car, face planted into a tree and just drove out of there. I spent the rest of the daylight sitting in my car, with my dog, in a car park. That night I told my dad about it. He thought I banged my head and was suffering from a concussion. I was crying and shit, so he took me to the hospital, got my bloods done, x-ray and physical. I just had a banged up lip. Try to tell family about this, they all gram onto the idea of me hitting my head. Dad realizes I'm deeply concerned and arranges a meeting with a clinical psychiatrist. Have blood taken again and an MRI scan of my brain. Nothing. Specialist doctor basically shrugs his shoulders and suggests I had some kind of waking dream. I was 22 then, in a very in the woods location, perhaps 200 meters from my event. There was a class of little girls learning how to ride horses. All of the horses wore bells, I could hear them. There are no weird animals in Ireland, none. 0. I don't do drugs, I can't drink, so I don't even bother. I guess I'm fedoratier, but I like keeping my family happy.
Not spooky, but kinda strange. I was camping once absolutely in a woods, far from any designated campsites or trails. Hours of fairly difficult hiking and nowhere near any sort of developed things. No signs of any campfires or anything nearby, or for hours. Anyway, that evening I was taking a piss by a random bush nearby, and I saw something strange sticking out of the ground underneath it. I grabbed it, and it was an excellently carved wooden knife, maybe a foot long, that somebody had stabbed into the ground under that bush in the middle of absolutely nowhere. The wood was very strong, in good condition, and the craftsmanship was excellent. I'm not sure how long it had been there, but it couldn't have been too long. The wood wasn't warped or rotted at all. You could definitely have used it as a stabbing weapon. It was shaped like a combat knife. No idea why it was there. Most likely explanation is that it was some other wilderness hiker who happened to pass through there, carved that knife while sitting around the fire one night, and decided to leave it there for some reason. Still though, the odds of me not only being in the same place, and of seeing it underneath that random bush, are very, very low. I still have the wooden knife and it's still in perfect condition.
It's not spooky or supernatural at all, but I do know of this very strange stone. the middle one in pic related. Images are currently broken in this archive database. There's this event in a small West Virginia town that I attend every year. One very specific stream has these round, cracked, and dark stones. They're quite rare even in the stream, but campers in the area have made it an activity to look for them for over half a century. We call them thunder eggs, but I believe that to be a total misidentification that ended up sticking. If you Google thunder eggs, you will see that the results are these volcanic ash geodes that don't look anything like this one. Now, the thing is, the people that go to this event are typically well connected and live all over the world. Many people over the years have brought thunder eggs to professional geologists and researchers to learn what the hell they actually are and why they have the cracks and such. None of the professionals are able to identify it. Lots of people have looked into it, and usually they come up with some bogus theory they aren't able to back with evidence. It's been itching at me for a long time. When I go back to college, I plan to see if an environmental studies professor that specializes in Appalachia has any ideas.
Out walking through the countryside in southwest England, hot AF, wanna smoke, climb through a hedge into a small dark area of trees and bushes. Only easy way to get in, surrounded by brambles and swampy shit. Sit on a fallen tree facing the entrance, skin up, beer, smoke, sun starting to set. Monged, been walking all day and tired, smoke too much, drift off. Crunch 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 crunch. Wake up, unmistakable sound of human feet on twigs, dark AF now, keep hearing crunching footsteps approaching the entrance 25 to 30 meters away. Certainly I can see a large dark outline of a man and a faint glow of a cigarette moving up and down through bushes. Frozen in stone, paranoid terror, eyes peeled back staring at the entrance. No knife, no torch. 30 minutes pass, still frozen staring at the entrance, sweating that cold anxious fear sweat, pitch black now, still thinking I can see a faint glow of a cig moving and hearing very slight rustling noises, not sure though. Start thinking I'm just tripping out from the skunk, still freaked out. Decide to leg it through dense thorny bastard brambles to get out, get cut to fuck, thorn stuck all over me, cap falls off. Finally wrestle through, run like fuck. Get home, ponder the incident, realize I was a stoned return, nothing was there, tell mates everything, they mock me. Go back the next day with mates to reclaim a favorite hat from brambles. No hat anywhere. Walk around to where I entered the area. Enormous Wellington boot imprints that aren't mine. 9 cigarette butts on the ground. Feel sick. 2 mates speechless and visibly uneasy. 2 months later, rumor goes around that a woman was stalked whilst walking her dog by a very large man dressed in black in the same area. I don't walk there anymore.
There's a native brook trout stream on the western part of Virginia I like going to. I knew there was a small campsite along the way. Start approaching the campsite, see a shitty tarp structure in the middle of the spot. Watch for a minute to see if anyone is there. There were no other cars at the trailhead and no movement in the camp. Approach and look around, underwear, swimsuits, and multiple pairs of shoes scattered around. Beer cans, opened and unopened all over, a bucket of random hygiene products, toothpaste, dish soap, laundry soap, and acne wipes, and college textbooks in a pile. The single worst fire pit I've ever seen butted up against a tree. It was like 3 feet tall, but the usable pit was only like 4 inches deep. Just rocks stacked excessively on top of each other. The structure was the worst offender, it had clearly been there for a few months. Tarps are all ripped, tons of standing water in the remains, with mosquito larvae swarming in it. Structure doesn't really make much sense. Tons of additional unnecessary logs being used as beams. Look inside, there's a bunch of 10 to 20 pound stones poking out of a tear in one of the roof tarps. Lol, what? Look on top of the structure, there's probably another dozen stones up there, total weight was over 100. A friend and I spent the next couple days tearing the methed out Bear Grylls shanty down and burning everything in a rebuilt fire pit that was further away from the tree. Best we could surmise was that some dumb college kids went camping and got caught in a storm, hence the fire pit so close to the tree. They probably put the stones and useless sticks on the roof to minimize the wind flapping the tarps, but the stones fell on them in the middle of the night and they had to run to the hospital, leaving a bunch of their shit behind.
Be a crowd hunter. Drive to the hunting area, 80% forest, to change the trail cam memory cards. Arrive much later than I wanted due to work and traffic, sun is already setting. Leave the car at the nearest road and walk, because the lumber trucks and rain fuck the trails. Very short trip, maybe 6 to 7 kilometers in total. I'm maybe 1 kilometer from my car when the woods turn dead fucking quiet. Makes me feel really uneasy, should be teeming with sounds, it's late spring fast forward. Also, didn't bring my rifle with me, since it was supposed to be just a quick trip after work. Change memory cards in the still dead silent woods that are getting darker and darker. Feel watched, hairs on my neck stand up, etc. I have to use my cell phone as a light on my way back. I think I heard some slight movement from behind on either side. Reach the car and hightail it out of there. I went back 2 weeks later with a hunting partner and my fucking rifle at day to check the cameras. On every trail cam you saw 1 or 2 wolves following me a couple of minutes after I left that camera, with only about 4 minutes difference at the last camera. This was back when it wasn't even official, our state had a wolf population. Was shitting bricks pretty good when we went through the pictures. Didn't look like they were fully grown yet, but still like a good-sized German Shepherd. Needless to say, I carry my fucking rifle now when I go out.
All human related. Told the story on K once, but I can't sleep, so may as well. Summer 2017. Out in Colorado just north of San Juan National Forest. Scouting some parcels for elk season. Just me. Scampering around the back country, glassing the place up. Pretty remote area. Patchy cell phone signal and not many people, but some well-used trails. Sitting on a spine, enjoying and sandwich in a smoke, spot a cluster of neon colors. Glass it up and it's a group of college-aged kids hiking up the valley below. Don't make much of it, keep snacking while watching them work their way up the trail. Notice something 800 yards behind them, glass it up. It's some dude in his 40s, in good shape but lots of grays in his beard, and he looks like a fucking vagrant. Even from over 1200 yards I can see how tattered his clothes look. So, the second I glassed this dude I got a weird feeling in my chest. The way he was moving was really weird, hard to describe, but he wanted to nonchalantly walk the path and he was seemingly aware of the people ahead of him. I actually thought of hyena when I saw him, dunno why, but that's what I thought. Anyway, dude following them up the valley acting sketchy, so I hatch a plan. I walk the spine and then cut the crest of the valley and place myself 250 yards above the trail in some timber. Wait for hikers to pass, they don't notice me. See vagrant man crest the bend. Step out the timber and greet him. Howdy partner. I don't know why I said to that, I'm from fucking Ohio. Vagrant man gets such a shock he practically cartwheels down the mountain. Gives me a wave and pretends to stop and mess with his shoes. I don't wait to see what happens. I do a 180 back into the timber and make the best time back to my spine. By the time I get back, the neon group were gone over the spine on the opposite side of the valley and a vagrant man is nowhere to be found. Dude left me with such an uneasy feeling I packed up my shit and moved camp and cold camp that night. The reason I greeted him was I thought that if he knew someone saw him he would be less likely to do whatever he was planning on doing to the neon flock. I know Anons will think I am a weirdo for doing all that shit based on a feeling, but I was a Leo for 6 years and I learned to trust my gut, and 9 out of 10 the instinct or vibe you get from someone is accurate. Conclusion of the story is that no one went missing that summer and I didn't hear about any muggins or attacks, so in all likelihood I gave a hippie a hernia for no reason, but maybe I saved some Zoomers from Mountain Janie. I hope it was the former, which makes the whole sequence of events funnier. There is a geology professor somewhere telling a story about how when he took his freshmen on a trip to look at rocks, some guy in camo scared the fucking shit out of him and they had to end their trip early.
One of the only UFO-esque encounters I've had was a plane that did not move. Sitting at a big overlook with my girlfriend. Clear skies and midday, only a small cloud that's behind us. Just enjoying the view and eating some sandwiches. Spot a big-ass plane, like a 767 size. It's fairly close, but I can't hear anything, think nothing of it since it still looks a little small. Flying lower than cruising altitude, no airport that could accommodate something that large in either direction, think nothing of it. No contrail, think nothing of it. After about 45 seconds it seems like it hasn't moved at all. Same position in relation to everything else. Oh, that's weird, haha. We stare at it. Over 2 minutes, and it looks dead fucking still. Just hovering. Grab my rather large 60x Beanos off my lap and have a look. It's close enough and stable enough that I can easily read words on the side. Zero blur or fuzz, it must be a lot closer than I thought. The Beanos are good but not that good. Take turns looking, both in agreement that it's not moving at all. It's been at least 10 minutes that we haven't taken our eyes off of it. It's been dead in the water the entire time. Even at a lower altitude it would cross the sky at that time. We look away. For why, I can't remember. Maybe it was to grab a cigarette or pick up something that was dropped. All I remember is we both looked away at the same time, and for no more than 5 seconds. Important distinction that we both looked away. One of us had always had eyes on it up until this point. We look back up. Poof. It's gone. Gone. Nowhere to be seen. Quickly scan the skies, zero trace of a plane. Only that one small cloud behind us. I don't know what the fuck it was, but my lizard brain says we weren't looking at a plane.
When I was around 7 years old, I was riding with my sister on an ATV through my grandparents' private land. She was 16 and driving, obviously. But we stopped in a clearing next to a small stream just to look around for sticks for campfires, but we both started hearing a voice come from the bushes across the river, and it sounded like something saying, "Mama, Mama, Mama, Mama," on repeat constantly, and things started to get real creepy, and I went back to the ATV, but my sister investigated the bushes and walked across the river but couldn't see anything. When we got back to camp, my sister and dad went back to the spot to investigate further in the bushes, thinking it was a hurt baby deer, but never found anything. They said the further in the woods the louder it got, to the point where it sounded like they were next to the source, but the woods were devoid of life, no birds, squirrels, deer, just a small creek and nothing but trees. For context, the sound sounded like a distorted deer saying "Mama 2 seconds, Mama 4 seconds, Mama," and I've never ever heard that sound in nature. Strange experience, but not paranormal or anything. Be a cheesehead. Duck hunting with my friend. Set up base camp and head into a massive reed field to get to the pond we normally set up at. 20 minutes of trekking through the reeds. I suddenly broke into a small area where the reeds were patted down. Sitting in the middle of this clearing was an African lion. I just froze, and we stared at each other for a second that felt way longer than it was. It's female and larger than a juvenile. Before I could raise my Auto 5 or say anything, my buddy pushed me and asked me why I stopped. Lion gets up and springs into the reeds. Friend sees only the back end of it and is equally stunned. Tell him we are going back to camp and getting the fuck out of here. I take up the rear and make the most terrifying hike of my life out of the reeds. Replace birdshot with buck. Every small animal or wind disturbing the reeds was a pouncing lion. We get to base camp and more hunters just arrived and were setting up. Tell them we just saw a fucking lion. Off-duty DNR officer asked me where it was and if I could lead him there and if I was sure it wasn't a mountain lion. Tell him I did a year internship in South Africa for my biology degree and know what an African lion looks like compared to our lions. Tell him I'm not going back unless a few DNR officers go with me. He calls the DNR and I lead them back to where I saw it in the clearing. They interview me and my friend and take samples. Tell me they will tell me what it is later. They never get back to me. Not really paranormal, but definitely my spookiest encounter. A few years later there were reports of a lion in Milwaukee, so maybe some friend is buying cubs then releasing them.
I believe you. Anon, ever look into the number of large exotic animals owned by private parties in the US? That's only the ones we know about, the ones in the books.
Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Not going to lie, I fucked a tree before. About half a dozen times to be precise. I was a forest surveyor working in bush camps, 10 days on 4 days off. We'd go to whatever town was closest and go absolutely apeshit and fuck anything that moves. There was only one woman in camp, the cook, and she looked like a fucking Sasquatch with mustache and neck stubble and everything. So even though I was horny as fuck, I still couldn't imagine even thinking about putting the moves on her. One night we were at a local bar and I was absolutely shit-faced and found myself taking to an old local drunk who used to be a feller. He laughed about our shifts and asked if I'd met with the old Slippery Elm missus yet, and I said I didn't know what the fuck he was talking about. He said you get the knothole of a fresh slippery elm log or standing tree and have your way with it. It's called slippery elm because underneath the bark is slippery as hell, and I guess some lonely loggers found out it makes a good organic fleshlight. I laughed and that was that. But fast forward day 7 or 8 of the next shift and I'm running transects on my own and getting horny as all fuck, thinking about past girls and all that. I run into a slippery elm with a perfect knothole and the guy's words came back. Fuck it, that's not true. I was looking at every slippery elm on my bearing for just the right knothole for about an hour or two and finally found one. Was it good? Brother, let's just say there are a few stands with trees that have my eyes.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.